Let's take it back to the year 2021, where the NBA MVP race had two new faces, Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid. These two dominant big men led their individual teams to top records while averaging over 25 points a game. And while each player brings something different to their team, their careers have been intertwined, for better and for worse. Now, we're in the 2023-2024 season, and Jokic and Embiid have been in the top two in MVP voting for the past 3 seasons, with a fourth one looking ever more likely every passing game. But behind these two great players are superstars knocking on the door of a top 2 finish in MVP voting. So today, we're going to go over each major award race, including the MVP award race, and see which player deserves the award at the 35-game mark. But before we get started, go ahead and like this video and subscribe for more NBA videos just like this one. So without further ado, let's get started. This year's MVP race is one of the closest in recent memory, as there's at least 5 guys who have a legitimate case to win this award. Let's take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for example, who I would currently have 5th on an MVP ballot. Shai is averaging almost 31 points a game on 54% shooting, with 6 assists, 6 rebounds, and a league-leading 2.8 steals per game on the second-best team in the West. In almost any other year, Shai would be at least in the top 3 of voting, and there's honestly a solid case as to why he could potentially win this award. Throughout the history of the MVP award, players like Steve Nash, Russell Westbrook, and Nikola Jokic have won solely because they elevated a supporting cast not ready to make the playoffs and took them to a top 6 seed in their conference. And while the Thunder don't lack the talent to make the playoffs, they aren't quite at the level of being contenders, much less a top 2 seed in the West. But Shai completely elevates this roster and possesses leadership qualities rarely seen from a 25-year-old that make OKC's future bright. You could say the same things about my 4th place player in MVP voting, Luka Doncic. Luka is averaging almost 33 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds a night while shooting a career-high 38% from 3. His impact is irreplaceable, and he's the sole reason why the Mavericks are still the 7th seed in the Western Conference, despite injuries to his supporting cast. There is a turnover concern with Doncic, who's averaging 4 a game, which is the 2nd most in the NBA. But that's almost excusable considering he puts up 35-point triple-doubles on an average night. Again, Doncic would probably be the frontrunner for MVP in a regular season, but because his team is 20-15 and the guys above him in my ballot are already established MVP winners who are top 3 in their conference, he's going to have to settle for 4th in my ballot. And now we're left with the same 3 players who have been top 3 in MVP voting for the past 2 seasons. And for the 3rd year in a row, in my ballot, coming in 3rd place, is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now the case for Giannis is simple. He's averaging a career high in points per game and field goal percentage while keeping the Bucks as a top 3 seed in the East, despite subpar defensive play from his supporting cast. He's shooting almost 66% in 2-point shots and creating almost 3 extra offensive possessions a night with his offensive rebounding. We all know how great Giannis is, but this year he seems extra motivated. Since the Bucks' 2021 title run, they haven't had much postseason success, highlighted by becoming only the 5th first seed ever to lose to the 8th seed in the first round of the playoffs. And while Giannis was the consensus best player in the league for the past 2 seasons, Nikola Jokic took that position away from him after winning the finals in May. It'll be interesting to see how the media votes, considering the top 3 guys in this ballot are having otherworldly seasons. But for now, I believe it's pretty clear that as great as Giannis has been, he's just below the top 2 in this voting. And now let's get to the real debate here. Who deserves the MVP through the first 35 games of this season? Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic? Both players have been lights out to start the season, with Embiid somehow getting better from his MVP campaign last season, with per-game averages of 33 points and 12 boards as one of the best players on a top 3 team in the East. Meanwhile, Jokic is still averaging video game numbers at 26 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists a game, while carrying a struggling Nuggets team to the 3rd seed out west. There's no wrong answer to this debate, as both guys have been outstanding for the past 4 seasons. But in my mind, this is the deciding factor. What basketball fans have become so obsessed with in recent years is a player's reputation when determining MVP. You can bring up past honors or playoff success all you want, but what the MVP award should come down to is a player's specific performance in that particular season. Throw out everything else that may sway your opinion on a specific player, and look at how they performed in that particular year. I will be the first to stand up for Nikola Jokic and argue that he's the best player in the NBA. But at this point in the season, my MVP is Joel Embiid. Coming into this season, expectations for the 76ers were low. We were still in the middle of the James Harden saga, and many were expecting that Embiid would soon request a trade. But he had different plans. Instead of forcing his way out of a questionable situation in Philly, he somehow elevated his play, with one example of this being his much improved playmaking, where he's now averaging a career-high 6 assists a game. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Embiid is a perfect player, because he is sometimes a frustrating player to watch with his foul-baiting tactics and constant flopping. But you cannot deny Embiid's talent, where he can put up 30 points and 12 boards a night while sitting out the entirety of the fourth quarter. Again, it's a close race, and both of these guys are completely deserving of the MVP award, but so far through the season, I have to give the edge to Embiid. Switching from one award that has many contenders to another that has a runaway contender, the Defensive Player of the Year so far into this season is definitely Rudy Gobert. Gobert has previously won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, most recently in 2021, and his play on the Timberwolves has anchored them to the best defense and the best record in the NBA. From an individual matchup standpoint, Gobert has held stars like Nikola Jokic to 1 of 6 shooting, Kristaps Porzingis to 2 of 6 shooting, Jaren Jackson Jr. to 2 of 8 shooting, Domantas Sabonis to 4 of 9 shooting, De'Aaron Fox to 2 of 8 shooting, and this list keeps going on and on and on, from rookies to superstars that Rudy Gobert consistently locks down. But what makes Gobert even more special defensively is his instincts as a help defender. The Timberwolves have been an overall great defensive team so far, but this is the NBA, where offense is king, and guys are bound to beat their individual defender and make it to the rim. But every single time they do, Gobert finds the right angle to impact the shot, evidenced by the fact that opponents shoot 6.6% worse at the rim when Gobert is on the floor. And because of this, he adds that level of confidence to the perimeter defenders to play more aggressively and with intensity, because even if they get beat off the dribble, Gobert will be there to clean up. The only player who might be able to make a run at the Defensive Player of the Year award is Anthony Davis, who has elite versatility in the paint or on the perimeter. But as long as Gobert keeps up this level of play, he should have this award locked up. Historically, the Most Improved Player award has gone to a guy who jumps from an end-of-the-rotation player to a key contributor. But within the last few seasons, the meaning of this award has changed, as guys like Ja Morant and Julius Randle are winning this award by progressing from an 18 to 20 point per game scorer to an all-star. And while I'm not too much of a fan of this change and how we select the Most Improved Player, I have to say that Tyrese Maxey is completely deserving of this award so far through the season. Maxey fits the modern-day mold of an MIP award winner, jumping from 20 to 26 points per game and from 3.5 assists to almost 7 assists a game. He stepped up as Philly's second option after the James Harden saga and transformed from a shot-first bench piece to an all-around all-star within 4 seasons. If that's not deserving of Most Improved Player, then I really don't know what is. You could also make an argument for Alperen Şengün, who was transformed into a Jokic-esque player for the 8th seed Rockets, or for Kobe White, who's currently averaging 18 a game, up from 9 a game last season. But Maxey's production has kept the Sixers near the top of the East, while allowing Embiid and others to play freely within the perimeter. One of the more interesting award races in the NBA so far through the season has been the Sixth Man of the Year award race, and it's currently between 2 players, Tim Hardaway Jr. of the Mavericks and Austin Reeves of the Lakers. If you look at the base numbers, both guys are playing extremely similar. Hardaway is currently averaging about 18 points a game with 4 rebounds and 2 assists while shooting 36% from 3. Meanwhile, Austin Reeves is putting up 15 points a game with 5 assists and 5 rebounds while shooting 37% from 3. Both guys are key pieces to their team's success, but to me, the 6th man of the year is a guy that is the best performing player off the bench and who has the biggest impact on his team's record. And while Reeves has grown into a hidden gem over the past year, Tim Hardaway Jr. has been absolutely lights out and pivotal to the Mavericks' success over the first half of the season. We all know Hardaway as a straight shooter, someone who, when given the ball, looks for his shot. Sometimes this attribute can be the downfall of the Mavericks, but this season, the Mavericks have been looking in Hardaway's direction more than normal, and it's completely worked out, as he's averaging a career high in points as the first guy off the bench. His 9.1 three-point attempts per game, and yes, I said 9.1, that's not a typo or a slip of the tongue, 9.1 three-point attempts per game, while a daunting number at first, of course, has been actually useful because he hits those threes at a high volume and can start a run with Luka or Kyrie off the floor. If you would look at his role on paper, you would think it's almost redundant considering how much offensive star power the Mavericks have. But it's actually quite the contrary, and if it weren't for him, and Luka's stellar play of course, the Mavs would definitely not be the 7th seed. And finally, let's talk about Rookie of the Year, which is pretty much in the same position from when I last talked about it, with Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama leading the charge, though there is some buzz from Jaime Jaquez, just not enough to be mentioned in this video. And just like I said it almost 2 months ago, I still firmly believe that Holmgren is the man to beat in this race. And it's not because Wembanyama is playing poorly. In fact, Wembanyama is pretty much the only reason to tune into the dreadful Spurs, who have the 2nd worst record in the NBA. But as fun as he is to watch, it also has to be held against him that his team is so bad. I know, his starting point guard is actually a forward with no playmaking abilities, and his secondary options are some of the worst in the NBA. But I can't remember a Rookie of the Year award winner within my lifetime that won with such a poor record. If the Spurs keep going at this rate, they're going to win around 12 games, which would be an utter embarrassment considering how talented this roster is on paper. I can't give my Rookie of the Year award to someone who isn't winning games. So I'm instead going to give it to Holmgren, who's one of the best players on one of the best teams in the league. Holmgren is averaging nearly 18 points a game while shooting 54% from the field and 40% from 3. It's unbelievable how polished he looks as a 21-year-old rookie because he plays with such great basketball IQ that I sometimes forget he isn't already 30. He finds a way to be in the right place at the right time and deliver in the biggest moments. So as for now, I'm going to give Holmgren my Rookie of the Year award, though I wouldn't be shocked if Wemby or Jaquez comes from behind and steals this. But what do you think? Comment below your thoughts on these picks and who you would have picked instead. And remember to subscribe for more NBA videos just like this one. I'm Julian with TalkBackSports, and I'll see you next time.